The left wants you to think there's a huge surge in support for a second Brexit referendum. But is there? I saw something pretty interesting on Daily Politics. Professor John Curtis, you know him if you're into politics. He's the guy that they have on as a political expert on the BBC every time there's an election. You see him all night, his mad hair, and he's, going away with the numbers, and he's brilliant. I love the guy. But he's been analysing polls for the BBC this time about how the British people feel about a second referendum. And there's been multiple polls thrown around. You've probably seen them in the papers over the last year. Some suggesting a large surge in support for a second referendum, and others suggesting a decline. But I think John Curtis has gotten this absolutely right. Take a quick look at this clip.
So Alistair Campbell said earlier that there's been a big shift in support for a second referendum, and Rachel Sylvester said as well that momentum is building for it. I called Professor John Curtis and I asked him that question, and this is what he told me. There is no consistent evidence of a shift in support for a second referendum. He told me that because he's been looking at the work of 4 different pollsters who have all been tracking this issue consistently, and 2 of them say that support for a second referendum is growing, and 2 of them say that it's falling. So that's why he says there's no consistent evidence of the support for it growing. Interestingly as well, it does depend what kind of question you ask. So if you ask people if they want another referendum, then that's not very popular. But if you ask people if they would support the people having the final say, then that is more popular. So that complicates it as well.
So what I found interesting about that is that the polls suggest, according to Curtis, who I believe, there's no consistent growth in a desire for a second referendum. But people are more interested in the idea when they're told about the option of having a say on the final deal. So pitch it in 2 different ways. Second Brexit referendum, people say no, because obviously we had a referendum. It's not democratic to just keep trying to change people's minds. But if you offer people the chance to have a final say, then it all gets a bit different. So that's not to say people support the idea of a people's vote, which is what is being pushed by Gina Miller and the Liberal Democrats. What people are saying is they want a say on the final deal. But what do they really want to do? The Liberal Democrats, I mean, the Gina Millers and all those lot, their people's vote idea is actually about splitting the vote 3 different ways, which is different to what the people are actually saying they want. What they want to do is allow people to choose to leave in one way, leave in another way, or overturn the results of the referendum, splitting the vote 3 ways and therefore giving them the advantage, allowing people to change their mind and overturn the decision and go back to normal. That's what Gina Miller and the Liberal Democrats want. That's what the people's vote is, but that's not what people are saying they want in these polls, because it's what they're doing is splitting the Brexit vote essentially and making it easier for them to overturn it. And what the people seem to be saying is that maybe we should have a say on how we deliver Brexit, not whether we should even consider overturning the result, but how we deliver Brexit. And you can't really blame them given the way that Theresa May's handled this. It's an absolute shambles. You know, that some people have been turned away from Brexit because they think, well, surely it can't work, because they've handled it that badly. It's a really, really bad situation. But I think it's interesting, the idea of having a vote on how we do it, because the British people may well be interested in going to the polls again to tell Theresa May that actually we want a no deal. Because we already know that most Brits don't like the Chequers deal. A Sky data poll showed that just 18% of British people approved of the Chequers deal. And she's been out in Europe, Austria, Salzburg, at a summit, and all EU leaders, as I reported yesterday, have said that, sorry, the Chequers deal won't work. And then Theresa May turns around and says, well, the Chequers deal is the only plan on the table. And it's like, well, okay, looks like we're heading for no deal, which is fine by me, by the way. So what do you think? If we had a say on the final deal and not a second referendum as Gina Miller proposes, how do you think people would vote? Would it be Chequers or no deal? Catch up with all the Rebel stories on our brand new app, which you can download now from the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store.